transparent, and credible elections. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you that the elections that took place in Côte d'Ivoire between 2000 and 2021 confirmed this observation. Why do we say that? In October 2000, that was during the military transition, the commission was suspended during the ballot counting process before being restored following a popular uprising demanding the departure of the then military ruler. The uprising caused about 100 dead and injured people. In 2010, unreconcilable disagreements among the members of the commission representing rival political parties and the presidential candidates, the subjugation of the commission to foreign power resulted in the violent electoral disputes that caused thousands of deaths and significant casualties that the country is yet to recover from. 2010 was the biggest independence or election-centered debacle. The CACI, till today, the Committee of Action for Côte d'Ivoire, still refutes the narrative that the 2010 post-election crisis caused 3,000 deaths. A new, transparent, and good governance-focused government will have the obligation to reinvestigate the matter in order to advance the truth and a national reconciliation, as we believe that more than 3,000 people were or lost their lives during this electoral debacle of 2010. In 2015 and 2020, although the election during those years were held with a lessened tensions, the presidential election did not meet the standard of transparency and fairness. Despite its importance, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, it's important within the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, Côte d'Ivoire, the top cocoa producing country in the world, has been far from abiding by the articles of Section 2 of the ECOWAS 2001 Protocols on Democracy and Good Governance. Let's say words about the voters lists. Ordinance number 2020-356 of April 8, 2020 of the Code of Election mandates the Independent Electoral Commission to update the voters list every year to account for all changes that may occur in the electoral body. Contrary to this ordinance, the Independent Electoral Commission has disturbingly failed to conduct voters registration and the revision of the voters list and the electoral list activities every year. No voters registration, for instance, took place in 2021 and 2022. The most recent registration took place in October, November 2024 and lasted only 30 days. Considering that a calendar year has 12 months and 365 days, considering that a budget is allocated every year to the Independent Electoral Commission, it is difficult to understand that citizens were given only 30 days to register or amend their registration to vote. The Independent Electoral Commission's blatant failure to comply with the spirit and the letter of the Code of Election is a deliberate tactic to restrain eligible voters from exercising their civic duty while maintaining a dubious voters list that will be and may be favorable to the ruling regime. During the press conference held on November 21st, 2024, the Vice President of the Independent Electoral Commission said that the Commission was able to receive over 1 million applications, including approximately over 900 first-time voters. This number was significantly below the 4 million people that the Independent Electoral Commission projected to register. The outcome of the November 2024 voters registration process shows that if the said process had taken place or take place every year, as the Code of Elections stipulates, Côte d'Ivoire could benefit from a more accurate list that reflects its human geography. Very quickly to talk about the voters' registration and the difficulties met. While it is true that looking at the over 1 million people application received, looking at that may look impressive, people, particularly in the rural areas in Côte d'Ivoire, still find the process of registering to vote challenging and sometimes impossible. There are about 12,000 polling stations scattered across Côte d'Ivoire, and many of them have not reached the expected numbers because of administrative burdens that prevent a sizable number of potential voters from obtaining important documents such as a national ID card, certificate of nationality that are needed to register to vote. As we talk about that, we also to look at, very quickly, the audit of the voters lists. Opposition parties in Côte d'Ivoire and experts and civil society organization leaders have claimed with clear evidence that over 2 million non-Ivorian people or individuals have been fraudulently registered to vote, asking the Independent Electoral Commission to agree to audit the general voters lists. The Independent Electoral Commissions continue to object to this request, continue to refuse this request, continue to refuse to yield to this demand. Strangely, the regime in power has not also been keen on asking for an audit of the electoral lists. Is that a coincidence? The question is left for all of us to answer. The second biggest threat to peace and democracy ahead of this election, after we have talked about the Independent Electoral Commission, is the inclusion and participation of citizens. Note that refusing to conduct another operation to register people to vote means that a good chunk of people will be forbidden from participating in the process and exercising their civic duties. But more than that, based on very questionable rulings from national courts and the rejection of rulings from the African Court of Justice and Human Rights, the Independent Electoral Commission, with the blessing of the Ministry of Justice, removed the key political and opposition leaders from the electoral list, automatically barring them from running for the presidential election. Former President Laurent Gbagbo, as we know, of the PPACI, as we said, Minister Tidiane Thiam of the PDCI RDA, Soro Guillaume of Génération Peuple Solidaire, Charles Blégoudet, and notable people whose names have been removed from the electoral lists. These removals are the reasons, and the reasons supporting them cast doubt on the willingness of the regime in power to organize free, fair, and non-violent elections. Deliberate exclusions of political leaders, especially those who represent a sizable portion of the electorate, are unconstitutional and sources of tension and violence. A treacherous aspect of this exclusion is the selective and partial use of the Côte d'Ivoire Nationality Act. Equally unconstitutional and potential source of tension is Mr. Alassane Ouattara's probable candidacy. This candidacy is nothing but unconstitutional, as the current term that he is serving that will end soon. It is nothing, this candidacy is nothing but an aggressive act of state capture by a civilian leader which ruins Côte d'Ivoire's chances of democratically electing patriotic ruling elites. Equally questionable is the law that the national parliaments, the National Assembly, as we said, passed on March 9, 2025, aiming to regulate the creation and operation of civil society organizations, including faith-based organizations. The new law, voted by the ruling party or the ruling regime dominated parliament, is now on the Senate floor. This law will significantly restrain civil liberties and limit the capacity of civil society organizations to engage in all civic matters. In addition to that, dear guests, two other big threats to peace and democracy in Côte d'Ivoire ahead of these presidential elections are the growing distrust in the justice system and the security context. Allow me to elaborate a little bit more on the security context. According to the Global Peace Index, Côte d'Ivoire has scored in 2024 and early 2025 2.25 points over 5, which is average. Côte d'Ivoire has a political, with this result, it means that Côte d'Ivoire has a political environment that may be conducive to holding a peaceful election if the regime in power resolutely refrains from voters' intimidation and protecting perpetrators of violent crimes. Due to concerns about the potential violence during the election, as we talk to families in Côte d'Ivoire, many have been seeking alternative locations for safety, both within and outside of the country. This security concern is heightened by information alleging that the regime in power in Côte d'Ivoire may be involved in maneuvers against the military regimes in Mali and Burkina Faso. The social, cultural, and trade relation between these countries and Côte d'Ivoire, I mean Mali, Burkina Faso, and Côte d'Ivoire, comments that the regime, or the ruling regime of Mr. Alassane Ouattara in Côte d'Ivoire refrain from and dissipates the current stalemate with the neighboring countries, although the CACI doubts that it has the willingness to do so. There are also important social economic disparities. The Human Development Index indicates about 35% of Côte d'Ivoire population is poor. This is also another source of threats and security, because there is no guarantee that a mechanism in place that will prevent thieving politicians to utilize their dirty money to corrupt the voters, especially the impoverished population in rural and urban centers in the upcoming elections. Based on all that we have just described, first of all, the Independent Electoral Commission. Second, the citizen participation, the growing distrust in the justice system, the security context in Côte d'Ivoire and West Africa in general, and now the social and economic disparities that may prevent Côte d'Ivoire from having peaceful elections. What are the CACI's call to action? What do we recommend? And what do we want? What do we demand? Based on the above observations, the CACI believes that the next presidential election in Côte d'Ivoire will be free, fair, and transparent on the following conditions. Condition number one, dissolve the current Independent Electoral Commission, and more than that, repeal the law, the ordinances, and the executive orders that have established the structure and the operation of the Independent Electoral Commission. So condition number one, dissolve the Independent Electoral Commission. Condition number two, create, of course, a new autonomous electoral commission which will not include representatives of political parties or of whoever is in power or movements of the ruling regimes. Elections are a competition, and therefore admitting the same people, the same organizations, and the same structures who will be competing in the structure or the institution that is supposed to regulate the competition makes that institution subservient of its constituents. Therefore, and to be clear, we demand that a new autonomous election committee should not include representatives of whoever is in power and also of political parties. The new commission, therefore, should be not accountable to the executive branch, but we wish to have it accountable to the National Assembly, which has a broader representation of the people of the country, with members, of course, serving for not more than 2 years. The CACI questions the necessity of a permanent commission with permanent employees earning permanent salaries. That may be the reasons why people are so keen on serving in the independent electoral commission, maintaining themselves there without any clear results that will advance peace and democracy in the country. The CACI also recommends that maybe it is time, and calling all the political actors, including the opposition parties, to think about the new structure of this independent electoral commission. For instance, delegating the preparation of the electoral list to the Ministère de l'Administration du Territoire, the Ministry of Interior, and municipalities. This strategy will include the delivery of administrative documents and registration on the electoral lists and the revision of those lists before they are handed to the Independent Electoral Commission, the new one, for operation and for the elections to take place. Of course, and we will need to stress that more often, voters' registration needs to take place every single day. Every single day, before and after, or time leading to an election. Posing on that, there are other final dispositions that the CACI is recommending and demanding and pushing for. For instance, the increased use or utilization of technology, for instance, smartphones, and obviously the internet in the voters' registration process. It happened in Nigeria, and it did allow so many people to register to vote, especially those who are in rural areas, and especially those who are also living with any form of impairments, or I'm talking about people living with disabilities, who find it very difficult to move or to go to a polling station to register to vote. The CACI agrees that any further election that includes Mr. Alassane Ouattara will be unconstitutional. His candidacy will violate all protocols on democracy and good governance as it dictates in 2001 by the Economic Community of West African States. Therefore, the CACI stands with and calls on all the patriots of Côte d'Ivoire, regardless of their ideologies, to unite against the ruling regime and its strong civilian man, Mr. Alassane Ouattara, who seeks to use unacceptable and violent means to remain in power. Second, reject any form of compromission and unanimously and pacifically call for and put in place an inclusive period of transition to give Côte d'Ivoire a cleaner opportunity to hold and reap the benefits of a free, fair, transparent presidential election in Côte d'Ivoire. With this being said, ladies and gentlemen, we want to yield and hear your comments, your questions, whether they come from online or they come from people in attendance in the room. I want to thank you again on behalf of CACI for your attendance. Feel free to go. I think we have a mic that can go in there for your questions. And as somebody asked before, we can take the questions in whichever language we will say in French or in English, and then we make sure that we give the answer in English for all of our listeners, who we have invited online media from all over the world, from Africa, from YouTube, for you media, and etc., who are following this press conference. Thank you.
You have a question for Mr. Peter from Philadelphia. This is his question. What kind of support are you expecting from the international community?
Thank you. We do not wish to look at Côte d'Ivoire as a country that lives in autarky or by itself or with closed doors. We live in the world, and Côte d'Ivoire has signed numerous treaties to be part of this global community. There is a reason why countries sign treaties. They sign treaties because it allows them to seek the respect that any country needs to have. They sign the treaties because it allows them to establish a good relationship, and the reputation of the country matters. So what we are expecting, based on those facts, from the international community is, number one, to stay informed of the situation. Early, before the opening of this conference, I met with a US authority, and I asked him, how can you help us? Or how can we work together to put the situation of Côte d'Ivoire on the map? The answer that was given is, let's talk. Reach out to me and we see what we'll do. And that's what we want the international community to do. First of all, get informed. Stay on top of the facts. In 2010, we believe that the international community, quote unquote, and especially here in the United States, the US administration did not listen to the people of Côte d'Ivoire. If they did, maybe we would have avoided the more than 3,000 people who perished in this post-election violence. So what we expect from them again, stay on top of the fact, listen, and give us the opportunity to speak on behalf of the people of Côte d'Ivoire. The other thing that we expect them to do, in whatever and whatsoever capacity, they have authorities, they have elected officials who serve on different committees here, either at the Senate, it may be even at the city level, at the state level, at the county level, or even at the federal level. Côte d'Ivoire is the #1 cocoa producer in the world, and a lot of these cocoa beans land here in the United States. It means that Côte d'Ivoire matters. So based on that, reach out, if it is possible, to your elected officials and put the question of Côte d'Ivoire on the map for us to continue to have a fruitful dialogue. This is what we expect from them.
Okay, the second question for Mr. Kofi is calling from Paris. His question is, what message do you want to send to the Ivorian government?
In our presentation, we talked about the regime in Côte d'Ivoire. Clearly. First message is, starting from the last recommendation, as we talked about an inclusive transitional period that we call, we have elaborated for a long period of time what we mean by that. The first message is for them to be peaceful, to be calm. It's for them to understand that nobody wants revenge. First message. Second message, open, true, fair, consistent, repeated, ongoing dialogue with all the political actors in Côte d'Ivoire will create the peace, will create the conducive environment, not just to hold the elections, but also for the people to live on a daily basis. Elections is not just about election. Democracy is not just about election, but it's about the ability for citizens, men, women, and workers to enjoy and reap the benefits of the work, but also to exercise their civic duties. Third message that we want the regime and the government in Côte d'Ivoire to understand, the so-called expression of a new term of a new constitution does not exist anywhere. There is no common sense that will support that. No matter how great a person can be according to them, there's always a time limit for something. 15 years is enough, but peacefully and quietly. There will not be any witch hunts, and I believe so, and I want to believe so, that will make them want to remain in power using unacceptable and unconstitutional means. This is all we are calling for.
The third question comes from Mr. Koulibaly from the Ivory Coast. He said, ask this question to Mr. Dr. Eric Eddy. How do you define a fair and peaceful election?
Thank you, sir, for this question. The answer is in our own documents. The answer is also in the different protocols that Côte d'Ivoire signed. I want to refer to the protocols on democracy and good governance, especially Article or Section 2, that clearly elaborates what a free and fair election should be. Free and fair election should be the election in which voters are not intimidated. It should be an election in which the list, the electoral roll, the list of voters, which is very critical, is truly reflective of the human geography of Côte d'Ivoire. What does that mean? It means that per the Constitution of Côte d'Ivoire, only the people who are eligible to be on the list should be on the list, which means Ivorian nationals. Nobody else. Nobody else. These are the criteria. Simple as that. Who is in charge of running the election? Who gives the results? How fair, equitable it is. All of those things, I'm not inventing them. They are in the Constitution, they are in the Code of Election, and they are in all other protocols that Côte d'Ivoire signed. One big one is, no one should die. No blood should be shed because of an election. Because you see, the election is supposed to be that event, even if it is divisive, at the end of the day, it should bring people together. Have we done that since 1990? Unfortunately not. It seems that since we have embarked on the multi-party system, we have moved from bad to worse, from worst to dangerous, and so on and so forth. It's time for us to come back up.
I have another question. That's my question. Okay. What role should the diaspora play in this electoral process?
The diaspora is doing its job. This press conference is one of the actions. We need to inform the world. We need to be the mouthpiece of the people in Côte d'Ivoire. I told you earlier, from hearsay, when we call our parents, our friends in Côte d'Ivoire, people fear. People have concerns about what will happen during this election. Should we leave the country? Should we also not leave the country? It is our job to echo these concerns to the people in it here. We live in the United States especially, and I'm talking about the Ivorian diaspora in the US. We have partners everywhere. To this press conference, we invited representatives of Pensée Patriotique, which is the political party of the new president in Gabon. We need to build those linkages. We need to build those links. We need to make sure that representatives of those political parties from other countries that are here be also our mouthpiece to their elected leaders or to their presidents. You never know. Somebody like yesterday as I was reading the news, I think even this morning, that Mr. Alassane Ouattara, ruling in Côte d'Ivoire, has hosted a meeting with the Prime Minister of Niger. We have the capacity to meet with representatives of those people, and messages are sent to these people. So that's what we have to do, not to be too expensive on the question. As a diaspora, that's what we have to do. Be the mouthpiece and echo the concerns of the people on the ground. But we also have another big thing to play, I believe. And this is not a criticism to my fellow members of the diaspora, but at some point I believe that we also need to be at that level where we are able to influence what is happening in Côte d'Ivoire. By the way we do things, by the way we call for things to be done. And I understand when you represent the party, you take direction from there. But at what point we become also people who guide what can be done over there. And when it comes to diplomacy, that's where we also have a big role to play. I do have a lot of experience in that. In my former capacity as the president of the Côte d'Ivoire Association in Philadelphia, we have led numerous trips to the Hill, as people will say, Capitol Hill, to the Senate, or to the House floor, meeting with people. This is a role that we should be playing, but not content ourselves with sending remittances all the time. There's more we can do.
Thank you.
Can I take some questions and comments in the room?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Okay, so my name is Conan Yao. I'm the delegate of PDCI, Parti Démocratique de Côte d'Ivoire in Washington, D.C. I'm also the representative of Tidiane Thiam, who is the president of the PDCI RDA and also the elect candidate for the election in October 2025. So first, I want to thank you, Dr. Edi, for this press conference. I want to thank also CACI-USA, which have been very close and partner with PDCI RDA since a lot of years. I also want to send you the salutation of our leaders from the coalition of Alternance Pacific, which have 20 plus party organization in Ivory Coast. The vice president or the representative of the COGEP, the FPI, the MGC are on their way to Washington, D.C. for a protestation for tomorrow, and that's why they are not here, but they want to send you the salutation. I also want to second everything you said. Okay? Everything you said regarding Ivory Coast, regarding the misgovernance in Ivory Coast. We all know now the IDH, Entities of Development Units. We need, as a diaspora, to show the wrong, to say the truth, and explain, everything what happened in Ivory Coast. The government have been lying for a long time, and now we need to show and tell the truth. We also, as a diaspora, need to protest. We need to unite and to protest against the mis-democracy in Ivory Coast. Everything you said regarding the process electoral of the next coming election in October 2025, we need the revision electoral every year. So we are waiting for the 2025 revision electoral. We also need the audits of the listing of the voter. We also want an inclusive election where all Ivorian, who are more than 18 years and who are allowed to vote can be in that list and go vote in peacefully. So thank you very much for this press conference. Thank you for everybody who is listening, and you have our full support. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates and representative of the PDCI. Let me assure you that we have also received, we being the Committee of Action, the invitation for this event tomorrow, and we will be there in support as well. Earlier, a question was asked about what the diaspora can do, and I believe that this is one of the things that we also need to do. Regardless of what people may say, that a protest march, may not reap the expected or reach the expected goals, but all that are part of democratic, actions allowed by either the Constitution or the length, or even by, in any normal democracy, people are free to express themselves and express their discontent when there is something. So we will be there tomorrow, and thank you for that, and of course, send our greetings to the leadership of the party that you represent here as well.
I'm Sosten Kofi Gadibo, and I'm the representative of CRAPA PDC, which is a think tank group that exists since 2007 in the US. First, I want to thank the Committee of Action for Côte d'Ivoire. I want to thank the key speaker, Dr. Eddie, who has been consistent with his belief of a free and fair election in the Ivory Coast. After I've listened to your expose about what's going on in the Ivory Coast, the only question that I want to ask is, what do you think the opposition, the political parties in the Ivory Coast have done significantly to move this type of situation? Because each year, each time, not year, but each election times, we go through the same process. Just like in the Ivory Coast, you got a place where when you rent, the city or the location is all people die. And the following year, the same thing happened. So my question is, what is the political parties and what are they doing? Do we see some movement? I understand when you're under a dictatorship type of government, it's difficult. But we have seen other places where there was movement, there's changes, there's progress. I would like to know, based on your experience, what do you think sincerely about our political party? Thank you.
Thank you, dear brother, for this question. I think I look at this question as an opportunity for us to self-reflect on what we have achieved. Basically, I will summarize the question that you asked and the comments to this one line or this one question. Have we moved the needle? If yes, in what direction? My answer is we have not moved the needle. We have not moved the needle. We have not moved the needle so significantly to push all the forces of unfairness back for us to have room to breathe. Mr. Kofi, you are right when you talk about every time we do the same thing. Yes, we are here again calling for free and fair election, or raising the alert in such a way that we put ourselves in a position of averting another electoral crisis. If the people in Côte d'Ivoire today are fearing for the elections, if they're fearing for their families, it means that we have not done or we have not achieved much. It's clear. Second thing, if today we are still talking about auditing the list after how many years, it means that we have not moved the needle. And this is both the ruling party and even also the opposition party. Because we have to be in the position of putting enough pressure, significant pressure for them to move. What else we have not been able to move? We have not been able to move on the independent electoral commission. Its operation. I love our leader and former university professor and the former president of the National Assembly, Mamadou Coulibaly, who always pulls important facts for us to understand. Can we imagine that every year a budget is allocated for this independent electoral commission to do some job, and then the job is either partially done or not done at all? And we stay in there saying nothing. Another thing, Sosten, maybe not directly related to elections, but also related to the lives of Ivorians. To show that we have not moved the needle that much. The Justice Department. How many people in Côte d'Ivoire today trust that the Justice Department will render justice? I did check the Afrobarometer, which I invite you to look at. They do wonderful surveys of people's opinions in their own countries. By 2023 and 2024, out of about 20 countries where they did the survey, more than half of the population in there did not believe, in Africa, in West Africa especially, did not believe that the elections were the right way, or elections put in place the right people that should be leading the countries. This is what? Distrust in the electoral process distrust in the justice system. Have we done something that moved the needle in terms of calmness or peace? It is true. When we are able to silence the gun today, and we are able to see that in Côte d'Ivoire there is no attempt to overthrow the current regime, this should be actually kudos for the opposition parties. Because years ago, since the 99, between 1999, or maybe a little bit before 1999, but 1999 when we had the first coup, up to 2010, 2011, it was clear insecurity because of whoever was in the opposition at the time. So maybe these are some of the things that we are dealing with. Another good thing that I want to also really underline is the civil society in Côte d'Ivoire. Civil society excluding the political parties. We have seen a qualitative move ahead. Civil society in Côte d'Ivoire today, our dear sister Edith Barry, who we work with a lot, Eric Semier and all of them, have been a little bit more vocal in talking about conditions in Côte d'Ivoire. For instance, when the law that was passed on March 19, 2025, was by the National Assembly, they had a press conference to talk about, arrest on civilian or civil liberties. I believe that those are a notable progress. But in terms of the needle itself, when it comes to how we run our elections, I doubt that we have done a good job. I'm going to end on this thing and remind our listeners, as we talk and insist on the Independent Electoral Commission, it is key. Why? Because we all remember that the Independent Electoral Commission was the baby of serious protests. Our friend and brother said it earlier, people age 18 and more to be, if they are influenced on the ballot. Before the creation of the Independent Electoral Commission, it was, right, people have to be 21. So the opposition requested that. That was one of the demands. Second demand was making sure that the list is purged of non-Ivorian nationals that are in it. And the third one was to take the election organization away from the Ministry of Interior and put it in an electoral body that will be independent. From 2000 to now, the electoral body, I leave you to answer the question, has it been independent? No. Has it done a good job? Have we had elections that are free, fair, transparent, and non-violent? No. Have we had any instance when the Independent Electoral Commission has been trusted by all parties? No. So this is my way of answering your question. Yes. You can use my mic here, right? For people to pass that to each other. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I think the question of Mr. Sosten Kofi and your answer inspired me like a talk. What do you think about the democratic culture of Ivorian civilian, including everybody, even the follower of the RHDP, which rule the Ivory Coast? And what is your message to all the civilians in Ivory Coast about democracy?
Thank you. Can I follow my question, please?
Now, after everything you said, and also knowing the work of CACI, which is very impressive, what do you think then on the new model that we're seeing in West Africa with the AES states, where they are now following our way of implementing democracy in our countries? We believe in people choosing without violence, without coup. And now it seems like in those countries, the masses are proving that way of giving the power, acquiring the power. I don't know if I make myself clear, but I'm just saying, I'm noticing and I'm saying that the people in those places, based on my own experience, my reading, they seems to be okay with it. Because I don't see people protesting, I don't see, how can you can tell me that the same thing in our countries, since the people are not saying anything, it means that they approve it. But what do you really think about democracy as we know it with free and fair election, and what's going on in the Sahel's countries in West Africa?
Thank you. I'm being told that we have a few minutes left before we end this important gathering. But these two questions are important. The first one, raised by our brother, representative of the PDC here, talks about the culture, democratic culture in Côte d'Ivoire. I want to series, put my answers in series. Answer number one here will be this. We have not, let me use the word of my former professor who has passed away, Professor Selimani, used to tell us the problem of our democracy is we don't have citizens. Le problème de la démocratie ivoirienne, c'est que nous n'avons pas de citoyens. And of course, as young students will say, but what do you mean? For he used to call me citoyen. Till today, or maybe now I not only I remember, but I realize why. The freedom, the independence of mind. When people have to go to an election, citizens, as you said, and expect that by casting their vote, they will be actually given a bag of rice to influence their vote, there is a problem. Second element of the answer here, the same Afrobarometer that I quoted also said that more than half of the population in West Africa do not think that it is their job to control what the elected officials do. That's a big problem. So it means that, again, coming back to the previous question, have we moved the needle? We have not sufficiently trained, educated, raised awareness of our population, whether in the rural areas, those who are educated, not educated, those who have a high level of education or not. We have not sufficiently raised the consciousness about what it means to be a citizen. And I think this is what is troubling us and preventing us, from moving ahead. When people have in rural areas to sell their lands, where is the patriotism? Knowing that the land is actually your first resource or source of production. You are in the village and you sell your land. What role are the political parties playing in raising this awareness? We are not going to leave that alone to the, to the civil society organization. Political parties can do something in there. Maybe include that, in the message. When you are actually campaigning or when you are doing your tours, maybe you need to include that in there. So this is my way of answering. The Constitution of Côte d'Ivoire and all laws existing that define the roles of a political party says les partis politiques participent en concours à l'expression du suffrage. To quote it in French. It means what it means. It means that they have to raise or educate people to be informed voters. Right? So, very quickly to answer that question, I think that we have a very low democratic culture in Côte d'Ivoire. I'm not going to say that it does not exist. It does exist, right? For instance, the culture of going to the poll every 5 years, it exists. But the culture of going to the polls every 5 years, knowing that I am putting in the ballot box my power that I can take about if whoever is elected is not doing the job. And this is not an imposition from the Western world. The kings and queens, the head of villages that we use to designate in our respective villages, depending on the society that we have, they have a mandate. You remember that not long ago, the king of Mosul was destituted. By who? Not the government, by the people. And if we go back to history, those things exist. Maybe we need to go back to those things and making sure that we recapture something that will help build this democratic. And here again, the civil society organizations are doing some jobs, but they need support to do more. About the countries of the Sahel, the Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, as you mentioned. Number one thing, I said it in my preliminary remarks, we are hearing more and more that the government of Côte d'Ivoire is involved, or may be involved, allegedly, I'm putting it this way, so
Exactly, yeah,
quote,
okay.
allegedly involved in some attempts to destabilize. We say no. This government is accountable to us. So we say, hey, this is what we are hearing. Please make sure that we don't hear those things. Why? Because the people of Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Mali, and Niger share a lot of history, culture, social ties, marital ties, trade ties together. So let's make sure. Listen, when we hear that there are about 80,000 people that are living as refugees in the northern part of Côte d'Ivoire from Burkina Faso because of the instability there, imagine what will happen if we devolve into another crisis. It would be another humanitarian crisis. Where would they go? So here's what the situation is about the people inside. Now, in terms of their democracy, still today, I do not believe that the people in Burkina Faso, in Niger, and in Mali are rejecting democracy. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. They're not rejecting democracy. They are rejecting what is killing them every single day. That civilian regimes have not been able to resolve it. That's what they are rejecting. But these are the people who also aspire to live in societies where they are able to voice their concerns, where they are able to express themselves. That's what I believe in. So, evidently, we all wish that down the line, that this country reach a level of stability that will be conducive for them to give the citizens, men and women, an opportunity to vote and to elect their leaders, whichever way it wants to be. And that's why, in concluding this part again, the Committee of Action for Côte d'Ivoire, since 2012, has been very keen on promoting the idea, our idea and our version of the transition. It is not a violent transition. It is not a military transition, but it is a transition that incorporates what happened in Benin in 1989-1990, what happened in South Africa under the CODESA, and then what also happened, the three countries example, and even what our former Francis Vaudier proposed. It is a blend of all these three things that what we believe can also lead to that. With these notes, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have any other question online.
Yes,
I wanted to thank you for your presence. We are going to continue to see this kind of things, this kind of press conferences, and further clear actions. Our name, as you see, is Committee of Action for Côte d'Ivoire. What are the actions? They're not going to be military action, but they're going to be democratic, actions to make sure that peace and democracy reign in Côte d'Ivoire ahead of the elections coming up. I thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bravo!
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, the audience. And thank you, everyone on the line. Like you just noticed, this is what CACI been doing for 13 years. So we invite you to follow us, and we'll be again, in the street starting tomorrow, right? So CACI will be on the line again and in the street for democracy and peace in Ivory Coast. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Je vais prendre quelques questions. Sosten. Et puis, comment ça s'appelle là? On se va. Quelques questions, oui. Après.
Mettez-vous là. Moi, j'ai travaillé ici, là, il faut qu'on voit. Tu as vu, à cause de ça, il n'a pas, à cause de ça, il n'a pas envoyé ma proposition encore. À cause de ça, c'est bon, ça c'est la même action. Tu fais un bon travail. À cause de l'air, parce que je vis, je fais ça. Ton iPad, tu prends son iPad. J'ai mis déjà la vidéo, donc je vais travailler par rapport à
On va prendre quelques questions tout à l'heure. Je vais prendre une photo rapidement que je te prends. Rapidement, s'il te plaît. Ok.
De toute façon, tu as attendu le téléphone. Oui, c'est ce que je dis. Ça me fait peur. Non, vas-y.
D'accord.
Vas-y, professeur.
Un peu derrière, s'il te plaît. C'est ça que j'ai. Encore. Oui, encore, il faut aller de l'autre côté un peu. Comme
C'est bon?
Voilà, là c'est super.
Oui, c'est pas mal.
On le fait en français ou en anglais? En français? Ok, d'accord.
Great, that's cool. Okay. Let's do it. Avec ça. D'accord.
Oui, bonjour, chef. Présentez-vous et pourquoi?
Moi, c'est Julien Sier, je suis de la communauté web. Je suis venu à cette conférence-là. Vraiment dire un mot pour lancer un appel à tous les Ivoiriens de la Côte d'Ivoire. Parce que moi, je viens de Diaspora, un petit village de la Côte d'Ivoire, où, pendant les élections de 2010, on avait beaucoup de victimes, près de 1000 morts en un seul jour. Et nous qui sommes à l'étranger, nous ne faisons que dépasser à la Côte d'Ivoire, que les élections se passent bien et que les autorités de la Côte d'Ivoire aussi mettent leurs balles à terre, la commission électorale mettre leurs balles à terre, pour que les Ivoiriens vraiment vivent dans la paix. Et que trop c'est vraiment c'est trop. Trop c'est trop, nous avons vraiment assez. Et nous leur souhaitons vraiment que la paix revienne à la Côte d'Ivoire.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur Sier.
Ça va envoyer ça, non? Voilà, si, avec ce que je vais te dire, il faut que je passe à mon patron. Il faut que je passe à mon patron. Il ne peut pas dépasser. Je vais prendre la mort.